Hello and welcome to the Hatchet Podcast, episode, who knows, 159?
I got the numbers. I got the numbers.
Hold on, Ross. We're counting. Today is a very special one. First of all, we'll announce who we are, of course. I'm Chris Trott.
I'm Ross Hornby. That guy's
No,
crazy.
you do you.
Oh, but you're...
The guest comes in last every time.
Fuck me. I'm Alex Smith, and I'm also here.
And I'm Simon Clark. You may know me as
Doctor.
Simon
Yeah,
Clark.
Doctor.
You earned that title.
Yeah, you've earned
4
it.
years of academy training wasted.
Exactly. Well, you've got to use it.
How long ago was that now for you?
I graduated in 2018. I finished in 2017.
Oh, okay.
When did we graduate? 2011.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think you were the year
Well, we
above me
wouldn't,
at
and also
school.
our courses probably weren't anywhere near as long as an actual.
Well, what was wild is like
PhD.
I went back
Yeah.
to I gave a talk this week at Oxford, and I realised it was more than 10 years since I'd been an
Yeah.
undergrad there.
Oh man.
Holy crap.
I was like,
Do you have to do regular? So it's a PhD, right? So do you have to do regular publishings as well, or is that something?
No,
does
you
that
get that.
Does that depend on?
no, you just as long as you've written a thesis, you've been examined,
Right,
and
okay.
they're happy to give you the title. You keep it.
Oh,
There are plenty of people who later
Well, I
in
don't know, I
life
think you
probably
get to
should
keep
hand
it,
it back.
yeah.
I will probably be one of them.
I've got a friend who has to regularly publish, so I'm not sure if it's a different category, but it's,
Oh,
it's an
really?
English PhD, so maybe it's different.
I mean, to be relevant within academia, you have to publish. It's publish or perish.
okay.
There's actually a lot of parallels.
Publish or
between-
perish. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay,
that's what
a
they- that's what
terminology
academics
for
What
it.
do they
Cool.
do? So the academics come and just beat you to death if you don't publish something?
You just kind of get funding. And you just stand up
Yeah,
on the streets.
so
you
basically.
starve.
Well, it's like being a YouTuber.
It's a slow death.
It's literally you have to make videos. You publish or perish. There's
Yeah,
not really
true,
any job
yeah.
security. You turn yourself into a commodity.
Yeah.
There's a huge amount of overlap between being a YouTuber and
I
being an
get.
academic.
Speaking of that, then, you know, obviously you've been in our videos before. You've made us eat our own salt.
Right here.
our
That's
own
what
body
it is.
salt.
Yeah, we fed it to people in the
But
audience.
just
That's
in
pretty weird.
case, if you want to like summarize your entire person, who you are.
Who are
Christ.
you? Yeah, because
I'm
you've been on
a
it before. That was a
burden.
while ago, wasn't
So
it?
you're a doctor come YouTuber.
Yeah, so I am a recovering academic, is how I like.
Oh wow.
Okay.
I did a PhD in atmospheric physics, and alongside my degree, I started making videos about climate and about what my research was about. And that became my full-time job. After I graduated, I took the leap, started doing it full-time, and that's been the case for now the past 7 years.
I think
Mostly videos about climate. There's a couple of other random bits and bobs in there. Do some gaming stuff.
Okay.
you met Ross at an airport, right? Was that
I met
like-
all of you at an airport. It was
Were
Glasgow.
we all there?
Yeah, we were there.
No, not Glasgow. So it was flying back from Edinburgh. You were coming back from Glasgow, I think, at Bristol Airport.
Bristol Airport, yeah.
I still have
Was
the
it
picture on my
Sterling?
phone
Was it the
somewhere, I
Witcher
think.
3
Yeah.
thing?
Yes, it would have been.
Yeah.
Because I was up there
God.
for a stag do, and I bumped into you at the
Right.
end, and I was just like, oh my god, this is the coolest day ever.
And then we were dressed as people characters on The Witcher. I was a pauper, and well, you
a
were
lady.
a lovely
And
lady.
I
was
was
it
really
Tom
good
Clark was
Geralt.
with you, and you just got hideously drunk?
Threw up in his
Yeah.
suitcase, yeah.
Wait,
No,
was
wait.
that time? That was a different
Tom
time.
threw up in your suitcase.
That was
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
were in a different place, I think, wasn't it? That was Cologne. Or was it somewhere else?
No, that was Scotland.
That
Oh, you
was
threw up in
Scotland.
yours? Oh, okay. I thought it was...
No, you're right. It
Cologne.
was a different place because in Scotland we were singing
Drunkenly
Scotland the
in the
Brave
Brave.
so loudly that a guy came out in his pants next door to us and went, "For fuck's sake, lads, really?" And then at that moment, I realised it was 2 a.m. I was really drunk, and we were being really
We were
loud.
really
in the
loud.
hallway of the hotel.
Yes, I remember that
Yeah.
video.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those moments where I'm just like, why didn't I think about other people probably not finding
We were
this?
dressed up.
Well, we also got told that the whole hotel had been rented for the event,
Right.
which was not true by the look on that man's face. I didn't see him at the feast, and
It
he
was
looked
not
like
the
he was going to
banquet.
kill me.
Yeah.
So it was like being in The Witcher.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Constant
Yeah.
death.
I
So that was
like,
a
"Oh,
long
no,
time
Geralt."
ago.
Yeah, because then I
What
came
year was
in
that?
and God, what did we do? We've worked on a couple of videos
Yeah.
on your channel.
Yeah,
Obviously, the most memorable is you making us run around Queen Square so
Yeah.
that you could take our sweat in a sponge, you take it home with you, and then get
boil it
salt.
off,
Boil it
isolate
off.
the
Boil it
salt.
off.
Yeah.
Worked out who had the most salt, and then we saw who tasted the best on
You had the
crisps.
You
tastiest
did that in your
crisps.
parents' kitchen, right?
Okay, the fucked
You
up
boiled
thing
off
is-
our sweat. And
So I bought a pan specifically for that video,
Yeah, yeah.
and I have forgotten which pan it is.
Oh
So we
no!
have been cooking with that probably.
This is a real.
I mean,
anything that
sweet.
comes off this pan is so tasty.
Yeah.
Tastes like Domino's.
Human
That's Ross's
MSG.
pepperoni Domino's sweat. It's delicious.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Bit of soap and water's fine. Right?
Now, we don't often get the opportunity to have a doctor of atmospheric science on our podcast. Usually, we just throw facts back and forth like we know what we're talking about.
Well, I don't think we say.
But we got some. We got some.
Say it.
We got some burning questions.
Okay.
From not only us but our audience as well. Who wants to start? Who's got some burning questions for a doctor?
So two things. I obviously have some questions. and secondly, at the end of this, I want to do one. It's not funny news, but I think it's a really good talking point news.
Is it
So
sad?
I think you'll find it's not sad.
Is it bleak?
It's like true crime. It's like a true crime thing. Okay,
Okay.
so it's a bit of a mystery. It's sad because somebody did die, but like, I was reading about it again the other day. It was something that came a few years ago, and I was reading about it again, and I just thought this would be a great thing to talk to you guys about. So at the end of this, I want to do one section.
So everyone has to listen to the end now.
So you've got to listen to the end.
That's how you hook 'em in.
Yeah.
You've done this
That's
before.
a good strategy. That's a good strategy.
So yeah, I mean, go ahead. I did do a quick check of the emails a minute ago for any questions specifically for you, but a lot of people have thought they've been really funny, and they've done stuff like how do fish hold their breath for so long.
Yeah.
And like several people did that, and they've clearly copied and pasted them from somewhere as well. So I'd really reflect on yourselves, guys, because
Come on.
Can't
You let
use
yourself
AI for
down.
everything.
You
guys.
can't use
The
AI
crater
for
one's pretty
everything.
funny though. Why do
Yeah, no, I didn't
meteorites
see that. Go ahead.
always land in craters?
Yeah, what? Well, yeah.
Fuck's sakes.
Thanks, Crumbs.
Yeah.
Someone's watched Tenet.
Yeah. Are children all actually small, or are they just far away? Do you need a doctor to answer that question?
Yeah, I think
They're
about
just
it.
far away.
I don't know. My daughter could just be really far away when I try and put her to bed. Yeah.
So when you
back
say
here.
you understand atmospherics, I presume you would understand or presume a way to put data into an aerosol. So we were
The data.
we
This
were
was-
describing
last week.
a few podcasts ago what we would do in a bunker, how we would like let people in, how we would rate them.
Okay, yeah, we've all been there, yeah.
Trott started talking about rating people's farts, which we initially thought was because obviously you don't want to be in a bunker for a long time with people who are terrible.
No, well, can I apply context to that?
I think that's a perfectly
Okay,
legit
fine, yeah,
concern.
carry on.
to be
But
honest.
no, that wasn't what he meant. He meant a different thing. He was like, I want to see if I can like learn something about them. Was that it? Or like,
Farts tell a lot about a person.
I see. Right.
Like, if they've got a weird diet,
Yep.
it's like, is that going to cause like behavioural issues? You know,
Yeah,
are they
yeah.
going to eat all of our food supplies? That
Yeah.
sort of thing. Can't always tell from face value what's going on biologically, but I think from internal farts coming external, you could learn a lot if you train.
and then that's when I thought, could you put data in an aerosol?
Thoughts?
Okay.
Ones and zeros. Are we doing ones and zeros or just?
Okay, yeah. So you could definitely learn something about somebody from their farts. Absolutely, because there's two
Thank
components
you.
to it,
Nice.
right? You've got the gas component, which is
Which part of your thesis is this?
it's probably somewhere in the background section.
Should we be taking notes?
You've got the gas components, like methane is one of the things that makes your farts smell. But you've also got particulate matter.
Yeah.
So the
lot.
bits of your insides that are then wafting through. So within that, you're going to have
Yeah.
information about chemically. what's going
How
on.
much particulate matter do you think there is? in
How much
a
is
single
normal?
fart?
I don't know off the top of my
Is
head.
that-
I know
because
that it's,
I
I know that
I'm not
it's
saying that should be the
in
next
there.
video we do because I don't even want. I
Do you
don't
think
know
you
if
can
I
measure
want
that?
to.
If you like a spectrometer or something like that, how would you do that?
You probably pass it through a series of filters, right? So you catch the PM1, PM2.
I was thinking just
yeah,
sniffing butts.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
So
could get a
if we
doctor to do it.
farted into like if let's say we unwrapped a brand new one of those, I don't know, Dyson fan things that sucks it up. They've
Yeah.
got like a
The
filtration thing at the
catches,
bottom.
yeah.
Yeah.
We got
Right,
a brand new
yeah.
one of those, HEPA filter of it, and we
just-
all just fucking let loose into it. We all fart into that thing,
And you
and
swabbed
then
it.
it's just because it gives you like a grading list of like
Yeah.
how much
VO2s.
It may not be as detailed as
Then yeah, you,
like a
you
better
could at least
test.
gauge the PM
But we could-
2.5.
Yeah. We could get the small, tiny matter and see if we really are breathing in little bits of poo.
What size do you think they would be on average?
That sounds like a biology question. I'm honestly not sure.
Well, so pollen, is that PM 2.5 or thereabouts, or is it a huge
Yeah, I think
range?
it's about that. Because, PM 2.5 is the one that's really bad for you.
Right.
PM 2.5 kills.
Oh, that's like the stuff that
So
exhausts.
it's some of it's natural, so some of it's fine wind-blown dust, some of it's sea salt crystals. A lot of it comes from burning fossil fuels,
Right.
so coal specifically. Kills about 7 million people a year.
So even if there was
Shit.
no
Quite a lot
fossil
of-
fuels
that's a big
being
number,
burned,
that
would
one.
salt crystals and other things still have a negative effect on people?
Yeah. So there was a paper that came out just before COP that basically said if you stop burning fossil fuels, you'd save about 5 million lives a year.
Yeah.
Because there is a natural component to PM 2.5.
So do people live on the people living on the coast are being negatively affected by sea salt crystals?
I think they can be. I think it's more the
Should
dust
we
that's
be
been-
worried about going to the seaside?
Well,
I want-
Now they're trying to
living by
take
the
summer
seaside.
holidays away from us.
I'm biased because I have a phobia of crabs. So
I fucking hate crabs too.
brilliant.
Yeah, they're
very
fucking
sensible.
weird, man.
Decapods, man.
But now you
They
can-
shouldn't have that
What's
many
that
legs.
about?
Why do they have weapons
Yeah.
built into them?
Insects are weird enough. Don't make them like that.
Insects, for some
The
reason,
little
insects, I'm
mouth.
like, that's fine, but 10 legs.
Is it the
no.
little ones that you're worried about?
Just all crabs.
Crabs are creepy,
all
but like
crabs.
Fuck 'em. It was when I, because in the Natural History Museum in Oxford, they had a Japanese spider crab, which
Oh,
they can
big
grow to be like
fuckers, yeah.
3 meters
Oh,
across.
Scary fuckers.
Oh
Yeah,
shit!
Like these things are
Spine crabs.
enormous. I
Holy
think
crap, that's
that
scary.
fucked me.
That is
I was-
scary.
Yeah.
So I don't
But
want to
now-
go to the beach anyway.
Yeah.
But now you
think-
can blame it on the sea salt crystals.
Yeah, that's why I don't want to go to the beach.
So-
Just trying to save my life. Thank you. It's not the crabs.
Yeah.
So it does. What does it do?
It gets in your lungs, and it basically gets into your bloodstream. The reason that the PM 2.5, so 2.5 is how many microns across it.
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
I think.
yeah.
And that basically, at that size, it can get past the blood barrier, and that means that it can then pass up to your brain. So it can cause strokes, it can cause heart disease, there's lots of things.
That's pretty bad.
Which is one of the reasons why we should pretty stop burning fossil fuels. Kind of a big health reason why we shouldn't do it.
Well, on the devil's advocate,
Go on.
population's
Here we
out
go.
of control in it, so
Should we be
knocking off
controlling
5
it?
million's probably not a bad thing, is it?
Thanos has entered the chat. I don't see a downside to this logic.
Is it worse?
I can't just make twice as many resources.
In a
No.
plastic bottle, isn't there supposed to be a load of like tiny microplastics in just one bottle, or is that not?
Yeah.
Has that not been proven fully?
I think that was a study recently that was
Is
like,
that worse for you, or does that just
They are
because
bad,
we're just
yeah.
gonna have all this inside us?
But the thing, right? Okay, I would say that like that's true. Yeah, recently it's found that even like oven-safe, microwave-safe plastics may indeed be leaching. In fact, it does seem they are leaching shitloads of plastics into all the food you put in them.
Yeah.
Which of course is a bit shit because we thought that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
But now it is the case. I think like it seems to me,
but
you know, may correct me,
got
we're
BPA-free
fucking
stuff.
saturated in these things. And instead of trying to reduce these things, we probably need to start looking for solutions to like neutralize these things, right? Like, because I mean, like, you know, what is it? 3M? That whole Dark Waters film. Have you seen that film? Great film. About 3M dumping
Teflon, isn't it?
Teflon.
Yeah.
And the negative effects of Teflon. Like they poisoned
Forever
like
chemicals.
all of the planet when they did that. Like that got into the water stream, and now it's in every living thing on Earth. So really, we probably. Do you not think that?
Well, yeah, there's the two angles to it, right? If you're in a bathtub and you're shitting yourself, the priority is to stop shitting yourself. Then you want to worry about sifting out all the shit that's already in the bath.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to say that you can't try and do both at the same time.
And what if shitting yourself is keeping like? And I
very
don't want to say
gross
the
analogy.
economy because I know that putting the
But what about
economy
the
ahead of human
shareholders?
lives makes no sense whatsoever. But
Yeah.
in order to maintain an economy that funds research, that funds keeps the lights on to help machines work to perform science. In a way, that's not a perfect analogy because that bathtub of shit is not entirely useless, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I guess that's where energy mix comes in. I know I'm playing devil's advocate here as well. I'm fully. I'm
but
fully
it's
on
a rational point.
you know,
and I
yeah,
think this was what the guy Sultan Al Jabbar, who was the head of COP28, the comments that he was making about there's no science behind the phase out of fossil fuels. Like you could be charitable and say that was what he was getting at. Like we can't just stop doing it tomorrow. And it's like, well,
I think
there
most
is
people
a lot of
accept
science behind why we
Yeah.
should stop doing it.
Yeah,
man.
we should be aiming for stopping.
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
like
'cause that's the thing. So I'm doing there's a video that should be coming out on my channel next week that's on good news about climate because there is loads of good news about climate. Just people don't talk about it. And one of the things that I try and put in context is like renewables are like being installed so much faster than people know. Like we think that by the end of the decade it'll be like 40% plus of electricity will come from renewables, and that's up from like
That's impressive.
1% at the start of the century. So it's huge. But you had to put that in perspective of the overall amount of energy that we get from fossil fuels hasn't actually changed that much. Like because there's more than just electricity. You've got heating, you've got transport and stuff like that. And yeah, you can electrify those sectors. So you can have electric cars, you can have heat pumps, and the total percentage of energy that is coming from being used in electricity has gone up in like a couple of percentage points the past decade, but it's not enough. So like the world still does absolutely run on fossil fuels, and it's like
Record profits, right? this
yeah,
year.
record profits. But like we are actually changing it, and like we're not in a position to be able to pivot and just do it tomorrow. And yeah, you are keeping the global economy going, but like that trajectory that we're on is currently the right direction. It's just too slow, but you can't lose sight of the fact that it is happening, you know. But to answer the point about like sieving your own shit out of the bathtub, yes.
I have had
being
to
on
do
this
that.
podcast.
I do that quite a lot. I'm merely doing the shower these days because then you can just stomp it.
It's,
like
it's
you
quite relatable, yeah.
Yeah.
You absolutely can, and there's nothing stopping you from doing two things at the same time. It's a question of whether doing that distracts you from actually finding the solution in the first place. So like people talking about carbon capture and storage, like that is absolutely just a distraction. That is just trying to keep you using fossil fuels for longer.
Yeah.
Like there are ways to mitigate the impact that we're having, like positive afforestation. Jingle Jam partner Just Dig It does this really well, where you're planting trees where they were previously lost using indigenous techniques and indigenous populations. Like you can do it in a sensible way, but as long as you do it in that context of you stop shitting the bath.
Yeah.
Stop shitting in the bath, basically, is what we're trying to get at.
Sorry, guys.
So
I'll stop.
there's not
At
much.
least
We can
reduce
tell a lot
it.
about
At least
your diet
reduce
from
it.
the
Come on,
shit.
yeah. Come on, lower it a little
It's just the warm water. Just something about it. Just. But no, that is very interesting. Thank you for that insight.
Isn't there a problem with cow farting as well?
Methane.
So to bring it back to farts, I know that we love to talk about farts.
That's a common misconception. It's burps.
It's burps, is it? Oh,
what
God,
is that?
it's a sex doll.
Oh no.
It's a sex doll. It's fine. It was a new
Not the
addition to the
sex
set. It's
doll.
fine.
So yeah, cows are ruminants, so they have different stomachs, and then the way that they process grass
They got
is
4, right?
I don't know. If it sounds right. I don't know
Not
enough
a
about cows to
biologist.
dispute it.
Yeah.
Let's say 4.
They move the grass around inside their stomachs, and doing that, they generate methane that they burp out.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why the carbon footprint of beef specifically is so
bigger,
high.
yeah.
I think it's like 60 kilograms of CO2 for every kilogram. Oh, sorry, CO2 equivalent, so including
God.
stuff like methane, for every kilo of beef.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Jeez.
Like it is, if you actually look at like a graph comparing it, and obviously it's global average data. There's slight variations depending where you are, but like the majority of it is simply just how cows feed themselves. It's not transport. It's not how you package it or anything like that. It is just the fact that they burp.
So should we be worried about how much we fart?
Us
as humans?
Not so. Tell you what,
I do a lot.
This guy.
I fart a
It's
lot.
huge.
Can't
Like,
keep it in.
what about people who do it a lot more? Like, like passive smoking is one thing, but like full-on smoking is another. I'm a full-on farter.
And then to go also just to bounce back to the particulate matter, should we be worried in the same room as him farting?
Oh, absolutely, I would.
And so when
is
we
that
breathe
going
in,
to their
because
brains?
we haven't fully understood.
Your brains are getting lodged with Smith's
Right.
shit.
Oh my god!
like
If we're gonna have a stroke and die because
Honestly,
of your
it
shit.
might make you smarter.
I might generate a gag reflex to fart if I knew from a fact that tiny pieces of his poo were going into my body.
There's a lot of COVID PPE still kicking around. I think you might want to invest in some.
Oh my
for this
God.
stuff. Like full on respiration.
But how do you know what's the good stuff, and how do you know it's the thing that's funding
Michel Monet.
Michel Monet's defense fund? Yeah. No, I
Shit.
don't. Yeah, that was good. That was a good segue. That's very funny. Like I didn't know whether to ask more questions about methane because, funnily enough, I was talking about methane last night. It might be because I knew you were coming on
fired?
today, and I was like, oh fucking hell, hold on, I'm gonna have to light that one off.
Another. Get a match, honey.
Don't burn
the
it.
council put one of those, those things in landfill sites where they burn off the methane. And the little
Yeah,
things? I've got
yeah.
one of those on the side of my ensuite. But like
It's always on fire.
the thing about the permafrost melting and releasing huge methane deposits could speed up.
Yeah, that's a tipping. Sorry, that's a tipping point that we know about. That's an interesting one. So basically, there's a lot of they're clathrates. So there's stuff that's buried in the permafrost in Siberia, northern latitudes, that if the ice melts would release lots of methane amongst other things. There's also the concern that actually it could release ancient viruses
Oh yeah.
and stuff like that. So like
man.
bubonic plague might be stored.
Yeah, but we definitely know the methane's in there. We don't necessarily know the mind-eating ancient viruses
potentially
in
not.
there.
But the
So
thing
we're
is,
just sat on a ticking time bomb.
we don't know actually.
Do I want the methane or the virus? Tell me now.
Both at the same time.
Fuck, one's going to kill you a lot faster than the other. Because we don't really have a very good idea of like how close it is to melting and how much methane there is there because it's so inaccessible. Like no PhD student wants to go to Siberia for 3 years and measure basically the Earth farting. Like, that's fundamentally what it is.
So a couple of years ago, I saw like some sort of scientific panel addressing a lot of very important people, probably a UN thing, talking about this very issue of, and the head scientists involved in studying the amount of methane being released from the Siberian permafrost was crying.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's because the gig was that bad.
Those conferences are often
or like
kind of
like she was
teary-eyed.
so like this could turn climate change in the next 100 years into climate change in the next 5 years. Like sort of like the amount of methane that could be potentially could be produced is like nuclear winter kind of style shit.
Yeah, there's large error bars in terms of the magnitude pop and the timescale. So it's like there's a paper that came out last year by Chris Lenton about global tipping point. So it's an example of a tipping point. There are other ones like the Gulf Stream shutting down, like the Amazon forest dying back, loss of the West Antarctic ice sheet, stuff like that, where we have a best guess of how much warming we think we would need to hit to release all of it. But then there's an error bar, and then the impact regionally and globally also has a pretty large error bar, and that is one of the least well understood ones. And yeah, like it is. If you are looking at the upper end of it, it's pretty fucking devastating. Like in the same way that on the other end of the spectrum, if the AMOC, like the Gulf Stream, shuts down, Europe could cool by 10 degrees. Like it could literally be ice age conditions.
Oh god.
But over the course of maybe a century.
Upside, we'd be able to get right across the channel into France for croissants.
Yeah.
I was going to go for invasion, for Henry III.
Oh, you want to get the sleds, going.
We're going to get Calais back. We're going to make France great.
Make the most of it. Got the Alps
You got to
everywhere.
look at the outsides. Yeah. Sure, most of Brittany's underwater, but
It's all frozen. It's not that bad.
Well, okay. Well, glad to hear there's a big error bar. That error bar helps me sleep at night.
And that's the thing. Like there's so little about those kind of tipping points that we do know for absolutely sure. Like it's one of these systems. And I was actually talking to a guy the other day about how like the Gulf Stream specifically, we don't know if we could ever know when it would shut down, if that makes sense, because it's such a complicated system. Like the way that you model it, like this guy's conclusion was basically like it's kind of impossible to say. Like we think that it's
so chaotic.
It's like so far. Like we think that it is triggerable, but we don't know exactly when, and it's not going to be.
So
the
just
near
to
future.
explain to people what the Gulf Stream briefly is.
So the Gulf Stream is this current of warm water in the Atlantic that goes from the west coast of America the east coast of America up to Western Europe. It's the reason why Western Europe and the UK specifically is so much warmer than they are, because if you look at the same
cozy
latitude in like what's the same latitude as the UK and America? It's like in the middle of Canada.
You're asking me the latitude, and I don't know the difference between latitude and longitude. So
It's like basically we're so much warmer than we should be because of this thing, and potentially if Greenland specifically melts, then that would have lots of fresh water that would disrupt that current, and you wouldn't get that conveyor belt of warmth, and suddenly Europe would really quite quickly cool off.
it's our little safety blanket.
Yeah, basically. And there's another one that people don't seem to talk about called I think it's the Kuroshishi current in the Pacific that goes off the west coast of the Pacific, because there's this, because of the Earth rotating, water in the ocean sloshes to the west of the ocean basin.
Whoa, hold on.
And then it just goes because the Earth's
Rotating.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Hang on. Because the sun is going overhead, right? The gravity of
all
the
right, I'm
sun
with you now.
A spinning direction.
is pulling the Earth, pulling the oceans, and it
Wow.
sloshes to the west of the ocean basins, and it forms.
And
these
over the
currents.
edge.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Holy shit. Wow.
Do you
I'm learning
think
a lot.
the politics behind it are frustrating?
I see that you've
Like
just
the climate crisis. Well, only because I saw yesterday that apparently Labour's pulling back on their spend for environmental projects. But there's constantly promises to do stuff. There's all these meetings where they're we're going to do this now as a group. Yeah, we're going to rally together. Everyone's going to
Just to
sign a contract.
interject,
And then
at that point, you did the fucking hell thing. How often do you wake up in the morning with that feeling?
Well, I look down at my
It's
body
like-
and I'm just like, shit.
No, at the world, at the knowledge you have in your brain of everything going
seems
on.
like no one takes it seriously at all. Well, at least they're not zooming out to the point where they're like actually taking the real risk.
Well, I think there's two aspects.
Because it's not affecting me now. It probably won't affect me right now. So
I think people
our
are
kids
taking
can
it
just take
seriously,
that on their head.
but in a way that we are not programmed as humans to deal with societal changes that are global and take place over decades.
Yeah.
And so I make this point in the video that before the Paris Agreement in 2016, we thought that we would get 4 degrees of warming this century. And at the moment, current policy, we think is going to limit it to 2.7.
Okay.
So we've already, in less than 10 years, really flattened that curve. And it's not enough, but we have made progress. The longer term, I think it's the 2030 targets, if we go through with those and they become policy, would limit it to 2.3. And if we hit all the net zero targets the countries have, it's looking like 2.1 at the moment. So, policy that is currently in place is making a difference. And people are taking it seriously. They're just not taking it as seriously enough, and we're not doing it fast enough. Which is, as when you see the news about Labour have just rode back this promise, really frustrating. Because, if you look at the data, people around the world, have never been more engaged about climate. Most voters in the top 20 most polluting countries support climate policy. They want us to do something about it. And political parties know that if they don't do something about it, for at least the majority of people, but because democracy's fucked, that doesn't necessarily mean that winning an election, it's going to cost you votes. So the thing with Labour's frustrating, because what the Tories are attacking isn't so much their climate policy, it's the fact that it's just a clusterfuck in Labour. There's no coherency, there's no
they've stated this because of economical reasons.
Yeah,
so
but
I guess
they're teasing them apart on this because Starmer's saying one thing and the other people in the party are saying another thing, and it's just not cohesive. I think if they were cohesive, they wouldn't have had to have rode this back. It just took them actually kind of sticking to their guns, which makes it so much more frustrating.
So you don't know what they're actually going to do.
This is the thing, they can make these promises, but they can always just pull that back whenever.
Yeah, Nick
It's
Clegg.
the economy's not quite right. There's another pandemic. Okay, sure. Well, we won't bother with any of that stuff. But surely this should be the priority number one for everyone, realistically, because obviously it affects everyone.
Yeah.
No matter who you follow, no matter which side you lean on, everyone's going to be equally fucked the same way.
Well, if you like, I imagine it like, you know, those star diagrams. If you're rating like a player in FIFA or something, it's like defense, attack.
Yeah.
speed and
You've
stuff.
got stats.
I imagine like a voter has that, but for like you got defense, you got energy, you got climate, stuff like that. And like I can't tell you that you should have climate at the top of your list.
Of course, yeah.
You may have something that means that you may have a pre-existing condition, say you want healthcare, you want to fund the NHS, and that's a personal thing. Can't tell you to not do that. But I can tell everyone that we should be taking climate towards the top of the list for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, just
Also, everything's relative as well. So, like,
but there's an economic argument to be taken action on it. Because like the cheapest form of energy we've ever invented is now solar energy. Like solar is spectacularly cheap, and obviously it doesn't work particularly well in this country. But wind is spectacularly cheap as well. And like from the argument of like energy security, not being dependent on like gas imports from Russia or from America now, like there are so many reasons economically why you do want to go the low carbon route, why you do want to take over control of your energy. And it's really frustrating to see a lot of the reasons why people don't take action on that is because of misinformation. It's because of fear mongering.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah, welcome to my world.
Yeah, right. Your comment section must be a burning.
What's wild is
dumpster fire.
there's an amazing channel. People don't watch it. There's a channel called Climate Town. Makes basically, you know, that scene in Suicide Squad where it's like he's me but better.
Right.
That's kind of me in Climate Town. Like,
sure.
it's just better than me.
Don't sell yourself short.
And he, I was talking to him about his comments, and I was like, you know, geez, what do you have to wade through? And he was like, oh, mine are great.
Oh wow.
My comments are lovely. And I was just like, what the fuck are
Weird.
you?
Who you been sent to?
Where are your audience
Your
coming
algorithm's
from?
going to just
Like
climate deniers.
Obviously, like the core audience of people that I get are lovely, but it's the tail end. It's the people who watch a video like, you know, years and years after it's gone out, and it's just like, Jesus. But there's ways. I will shout out YouTube's moderation tools, because there's great ways that you can catch a lot of them. So like you have the list of words where if you include it in the comment, it gets filtered. So I've got like liberal misspelled. So like LIBRAL, that catches loads.
Nice.
Al Gore, all one word.
Wow.
Like seafront properties is another one.
Really?
There's like specific ones that you can get, because it's like Obama's buying seafront properties.
Right,
Yeah,
and
it's like,
they start messing. Okay, well, I think it's good that you have those, because
you should. Yeah.
I feel like the other guy's in an echo chamber of people that already agree, whereas you're at least
I'm reaching the people.
you're reaching the people,
Yeah.
and if you can convert at
Educating
least
some people.
one of those people to start considering the other option of like, oh, maybe I have been brainwashed by doom-saying politics news, then I think that's a good thing.
Well, the way
Also, like, if you don't manage to convert those people, you could have a secret side project clandestine paramilitary force that goes and finds those people.
Wow.
you should read.
Have you got them on a
Ministry
list?
for the
Yeah.
Future by Kim Stanley Robinson.
Is that what that is?
It's a UN agency. Okay, slight spoilers for this book. If people don't want to read it, just mute the podcast for like 30 seconds. It's this idea that there's a UN agency that's set up to advocate for people in the future.
Right,
And
nice.
this woman who heads it has this experience where she's like, I think we want a paramilitary force.
Right.
And she goes to her chief of staff and she's like, I think on the down low, we need a paramilitary force. And he's just like, we already have one. It's like, whoa! Shit the bed. Okay, you can unmute now.
That's cool.
But yeah, I'd recommend that book. It's very good.
Yeah.
I mean, what I try and do with the videos is I call them Trojan horse videos, because like you package it to look like it's coming from a climate skeptic.
Right,
So it's like, where's the sea level rise? Why hasn't the sea level risen yet? And then you can like kind of hit them about a third of the way into the video to be
Right.
like, yeah, here's the data kind of thing. But you package it in such a way that it gets into their algorithm, because otherwise, you're preaching to the choir, and YouTube just radicalizes people massively. So
Very much so.
they're never going to see most scientific content. They're going to see stuff from Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson and whatnot.
This is why, and I've said this for a long time, I've advocated for like positive propaganda. Like imagine if the government was sponsoring, well, I guess being an elected government, it kind of reflects the opinions of whoever elected them, so it's a bit tricky. But like, like you doing that, that what you're saying with the titles and like trying to like draw people in by appearing as a skeptic and then giving them something like that's almost like a sort of prestige style form of propaganda where you can sort of like bait and switch people, but in a way that's
So it
like
explains the comments.
clever. Yeah.
Just,
what the fuck? I thought this guy was going to agree with me.
You're trying to educate
You wasted 3 minutes of my
Shit.
life.
Downvote. I hope they only show me agreeable content on YouTube for the future.
When was the last time you disliked a YouTube video? By the
I
way?
haven't even. I don't interact in.
I
it.
don't
It's bad,
like
and
to
you
drag
should
platforms
really.
because I don't want them to understand why I watch their platform.
That's fair enough.
But you see,
Like-
just merely a click now. And when they've got your eyes,
sure.
you're fucked.
For sure, yeah. The eyes.
Once you've got the Vision Pro, you're like, I'm looking at everything I want to look at.
But phones already pay attention to where you're glancing
and
on
how
on
long
the
it's on the screen for.
Even if you're scrolling. So you can't avoid it. You're right.
Also, you physically can't on YouTube now. There is
no. You can still dislike it, but they don't show you the number.
That's right.
If I really dislike something, I would type dislike. Comment.
I don't understand the kind of person who dislikes videos. I get them on every single. Even like when my baby was born, it was just like dislikes on this.
I guess it
video.
depends. If it's offensive specifically, but I just don't bother. Like I just move on. But
it's a certain kind of person.
With these things differently.
It's a troll.
But it also means that if I'm successful at doing this kind of propaganda, like positive propaganda, like my life is hell reading the comments. So
it takes
any comment is a good comment in that regard, algorithmically.
It's like Borat. It increased tourism to Kazakhstan. Any tourism is good. Any publicity is good publicity.
For your mental health, it is death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah. I need to. This is why I mostly consume content about Warhammer. I don't watch that many other climate people.
What do you think? Escapes are very important, aren't they?
What do you think fuels like climate denial? Is it just?
So this is interesting.
Propaganda?
Actually.
Is it?
So there was a really big paper that came out a couple of weeks ago that basically said climate skepticism online has changed. It used to be climate's not changing, and if it is changing, we're not responsible for it. And now it's like those arguments have really fallen off, and now it's
an acceptance.
What we're proposing isn't going to work. There's no point doing anything. Okay. Like doomerism has now replaced skepticism, seemingly, and that's I think a lot more worrying, because I think that's a much more effective way to engage people to not do something. Because if you say to people we're not warming, well, the evidence is just mounting and mounting. But to say to someone, well, this solution isn't going to work. And it's people who you might not think of as being skeptics, like say Jordan Peterson or like Ben Shapiro. It's just like, you are effectively indoctrinating people to think, well, this problem is unsolvable, let's not do anything about it, and that means it probably isn't that big of a deal. And I think that's so much more dangerous. So I'll probably do a video about that quite soon.
But that just strikes me as more just a selfish mentality of, it's not going to affect me in my lifetime.
Yeah,
let's live our lives and have fucking fun. And it's like, I can appreciate why a lot of people might think like that, and like, well, it's not affecting me, I don't have kids, or whatever.
But or you're so disempowered that you feel like, well, I want to care, but it actually hurts to care, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It hurts to become invested in something you cannot influence. And so I think people resist that quite often.
But the original point about where does skepticism come from is a book I literally think everyone should read, called Merchants of Doubt. And it's basically the same scientists were trotted out to dispute the science about smoking causing cancer, the hole in the ozone layer, acid rain, and climate change. The same scientists were brought out, and they were all brought out by these right-wing think tanks. Because in America, there were this small but really influential group of people who thought that basically legislation that changed how we lived our lives was communism. And so they fought massively to stop people from actually doing that kind of legislation. So there was, I did a video about this last year, there was a big conference in the Netherlands called the Noordwijk Conference in 1989, where we came really close to a legally binding agreement to limit greenhouse gas emissions. And the Americans, and that group of people specifically, torpedoed it because they got to the White House advisor on science.
Oh, that's pretty sad.
So everyone should read that book. It's Merchants of Doubt by Oreskes and Conway. It's an amazing read, but it does make you
spoil it.
Yeah, I was going to say, does it not make
spoilers.
You feel franchised? I guess I just try to dodge disenfranchisement as much as possible, because I don't think I'm a particularly durable person when it comes to dealing with all of these things that you must deal with in a much more acute way than I ever do as well. Which is tough. I think hanging
Testament.
I think it's just a worry that there's not enough intellectual people in Parliament
or in the world.
In the world, sure, but they're there. It's just the fact that they
can't make enough of an impact.
They're not going to be voted for their opinions and stuff.
My
when they speak, they say
is
things that confuse people. So they're like, I don't want to listen to that guy.
But
I'll listen to the guy with floppy
that,
hair.
I feel like we are in a period of transition where we're going from, we could have politicians that exist in the way they do right now because their inaction or their failure to properly target resources doesn't have enough of an impact. I think we're really coming to the rub now, where we need effective government, effective legislation in order to act fast enough to prevent not societal collapse, but just damage to all of us, right? In every way, in progress. That if we don't get a grip on these things, we may not see amazing things in our lifetimes that we would have done if science was allowed to progress, or if we were allowed to not spend all our resources.
Oh yeah, I can look at coral reefs on, but
not porn.
Not pornography.
Yeah, it's about human experience. And it's about looking after the planet as well, and looking after all the things that live on it. And I think everyone's just kind of getting a bit sick.
I
I think one of the
like,
big problems is that people seem to think that humans are separate from nature, and like we're not actually massively intrinsically linked to it. And I think
we were genetically modified by aliens, but
drop onto the planet.
But the planet is very much our circulatory system, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we are enmeshed in it. It's not a separate us and them. And I think there's an organisation called Durrell that I've worked with before who basically advocate for getting people more in touch with nature and just exposing them to this is what different species look like. This is but some basic stuff about their ecology and biology, and just doing that makes you aware of how connected stuff is. And I think a lot, like, we could do so much good by just getting people outside and connected.
Touching some goddamn grass,
exactly. But I think there's a large argument to be made for curtailing civil liberties, honestly. Like,
don't say this, because I say this and I can't have you say it.
I mean,
because I said this to my I've got a friend who's a very smart guy. He works in Africa, helping indigenous people to last time I spoke to him, he was stopping people from eating bushmeat, basically. Nice. Because basically the problem was people were getting ill, they were getting huge illnesses going through because of all the parasites.
The worms. He showed us the bucket of worms.
That was a different guy. That was a different guy that does parasite study.
Well,
but anyway, he was, he is having to deal with a lot of, I can't remember the point I was making now. Fuck. Now all I can think of is that bucket of worms.
Helping, it's quite vivid in my mind.
Civil liberties, that was it. Sorry, and he went to a big thing where they were talking about sustainability. I think it was largely about forestry, and so when I say big thing, I mean like many representatives from many countries. And he's saying like, China are essentially just like ignoring. Like the problem is right now is China don't seem to care enough about what everybody else thinks about doing things, and so they're having a big problem with breaking through to them to getting it. But largely, what I was saying, I was talking a bit about like authoritarianism because we were talking about China, and China has an authoritarian approach to a lot of the modern things that we're all facing, right? Be it COVID with the fucking drones spraying streets and things like that, like completely different approach to what we're doing.
Well, they just banned all the gacha mechanics on microtransactions.
They've just done that.
You see that?
Right, yeah. So when you said civil liberties, were you talking about like authoritarian solutions to global problems?
It would be something like stopping you from using a particular product if it was massively damaging to the environment.
Yeah.
But to be fair, and I want to be very clear that I don't agree with the Chinese government on a lot of things. Obviously, their treatment of ethnic minorities and their foreign policy, there's lots of stuff to disagree with.
And the Uyghurs, everyone's been quiet about the Uyghurs.
But exactly. But on their climate policy, they are possibly getting more shit done than anyone else.
Yeah, they've done a lot of solar transitions.
So the most mind-blowing statistic, last year, China added more solar panels than the US has in its entire history.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
It is crazy how quick China is rolling out renewables.
Interesting.
Their emissions have probably peaked last year. Their installation of solar is going to be the largest form of energy for them next year, I think.
Oh, shit.
That's this thing that people seem to have. They like the idea of China as being this boogeyman because I guess it rescinds control. It's like, it means I don't have to do anything because China's not doing anything.
It's othering, yeah.
But they they are massively ramping up their use of renewables, and they are probably going to hit their targets in terms of, because they do set out these 5-year plans for like, we're going to do this and this, and some of them are environmental, and I reckon they will probably hit them.
Does China control quite a lot of the resources required to build solar panels?
Yes, that's the thing about it, is they control
the global supply chain. And are they using it to create even greater dominance over the world in another form? So why fight a war when you can just build the most solar panels?
Yeah, so that's the flip side of it, is yes, they're doing a fantastic thing from a carbon emissions perspective, but in terms of like, I don't know the exact statistics, but I think it's like the lithium extraction and processing, I think they control like 95% of that.
And so isn't that, because I thought that there was also like this kind of, the fact that they're mining for all this stuff is also damaging as well. Is that a climate thing or is that something else? Whereas like for batteries and like the kind of electric cars,
it's probably all holistic.
The production of all of these things.
I guess climate is always linked to all forms.
It'll be linked to it, but I think it's stuff like runoff from the mining operations. It's also humanitarian. It's just like people are treated like shit, and it's a new form of colonialism where it's a lot of this is happening in Africa and it's being controlled by Chinese entities going in and doing this. But like, you can't ignore that. The whole thing about the climate crisis is it is a holistic thing. Everything is connected, and you can't solve just one problem without addressing these other ones.
Because they say that like a brand new electric car is probably not actually as efficient as old
so
banger in
the
terms of like how
emissions.
much the emissions, because obviously everything that went into this new product still required a lot of fucking emissions beforehand.
I can't remember the exact figure.
It doesn't weigh off until like several years later. So
But centralized emissions are always going to be better than decentralized emissions, I think, is my blanket response to something about like the idea of an electric car versus a combustion car. At least with electric cars, emissions are centralized. It's much easier to regulate, control, and add measures to control those emissions than, say, making even good petrol cars, because those emissions are just out the tailpipe and into everybody's air, right?
Yeah.
I think that would be my
I
thought.
can't remember again.
Exactly.
I think it's like a couple of thousand miles that you need to drive in an EV before then you break even and it's less effective. So it's not actually that fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like
Did it?
but there's a lot of pushback. It's like a culture war issue on EVs specifically. Like in the UK press in particular. Like
'cause of the-
Daily Mail hates EVs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, they just want to take any of
So I
their
thought it was just
opinions
infrastructure
into...
was just going to be the infrastructure wouldn't manage it if we got rid of.
But it's a chicken and egg thing. It's
Yeah.
like you don't build the
Yeah,
infrastructure until you have the
You have
demand.
to grow it. Yeah.
And that's an example where you need government policy. You need the government to step in and say, right, we're going to build these charging stations, or support industry to do that, and then that supports the uptake.
I like the idea of swappable batteries. That sounded
Well, there was
cool.
that Tom Scott video about it.
Yeah, that was cool.
There are
That
companies
sounds
that are
like
trying
it
to do it,
like,
but it
was
looks like
hydrogen cells.
Hydrogen cells will depend.
That's
It all
a slow
depends on
burn.
investment. Like, it might happen.
Hydrogen's a weird
Yeah.
one as well because it uses the existing fossil fuel infrastructure,
Which they'd be very happy with.
which they would be very, and that's why they tend to push
Right,
hydrogen.
I see.
Another distraction, perhaps.
Yeah, probably. It's something
From
that
what,
I don't think
though?
we need.
Distraction from what? Sorry.
As in from like people going to electrifying things,
Right.
So that
Right.
it's still keeping them in business, and it's like, well,
So you would still rate an EV over a hydrogen vehicle?
I am not an expert in this, but my understanding
okay.
of it is yes,
Right. Okay.
because at the end of the day, if
I know
you are-
EVs aren't in their final form right now as well. Like I'm
No,
talking
no,
like
no.
an EV with a 500-mile range would be preferable to a hydrogen vehicle with a 500-mile range. Let's say.
Yeah,
for
as
example.
I understand it, and I need
Right.
to do more research into this, and that's partly because by buying the hydrogen, you are inherently supporting that fossil fuel extraction system and that existing mode of getting energy where we don't need it anymore. And
Well, we're not
also-
going to be extracting hydrogen. We'd be generating it.
Well,
Surely.
no. As in, but that's propping up the business of someone like Shell or BP.
Oh,
like,
so you're basically just letting them live on. They don't get their come up and so
you're
they're grand
subsidising their
failure.
continued existence. I
Right.
guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is also what kind of governments have been doing for however many years. I don't know, whatever it is, it's a fucking crazy statistic in terms of fossil fuel subsidies per day. It's it's like 150 million pounds a day, or it's probably even more than that. I can't remember.
Do you want to hear two crazy things now? Are we okay?
Sure,
You guys
yeah.
have any more
Yeah,
questions?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Go.
First, talking about how colonialization, just earlier on, how you said about how China's doing some form of colonialization by using Africa to mine certain minerals. Russia is using African gold mines to buy Iranian drones. So they sent Iran last year, at the end of last year, 2 tons of gold in order to purchase their drones.
It's like a medieval convoy.
Yeah. Right.
Crazy, isn't it?
Pull the
It's
blanket
the
off.
wagons.
the things that happen
Gold.
still,
Gold.
and they're using Wagner mercenaries to do it. So obviously they killed the
really?
Wagner
Yeah.
leader because couldn't stand that slight. It is
No,
medieval.
no.
It is the medieval times, of course.
No, it was a plane.
He tried to challenge the king and took a pop at the champ, missed.
That day when he was like marching on Moscow, I was
That was crazy. I was like,
I was on a scout
I'm
camp.
really interested to see what
I was the
happens.
only one who had like phone signal, and I was like, guys,
Yeah, right.
Crazy.
there's a tank column marching on Moscow right now.
Oh, I know. And also the worst thing was like how like sedate and almost it seemed like as they were going through, you're like, he's fucked this up. Nobody's come to his call. They're not going to depose him, and he knows that he's just a dead man walking like around Moscow. So this is the other crazy story that I wanted to tell you guys at the end of this. I found.
Is it politicky?
It's not politicky.
Oh, is this the
This
murder
is the
mystery
murder
thing?
mystery.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, yeah,
If
go
that's
on.
okay, and we'll go on to
for
that. Right. So, a little bit of a story. This was published on Now Then magazine. I have no idea whether it might be an
Is it
alt-right
just Now Then or
magazine.
Now Then? Because
Now
I have
Then
problems with
magazine.
the second one.
Well, it's Sheffield. I don't know. Murder: The Likely Story of Gareth Williams. So Gareth Williams has been in the news again recently. He was this person. I'll just read the story. A Welsh lad achieves A-grade maths and computer science A-levels aged 13. He gets a first-class degree in maths age 17, and at 18 begins his PhD in Manchester. When he is 22, he starts working for GCHQ, the government's listening station at Cheltenham. He's quiet, a country boy. He doesn't go out a lot. He likes his own space. Then one day in 2010, Gareth doesn't turn up to work, nor the next day. A week goes by. Eventually, a policeman is sent round to the Pimlico flat where Gareth has been living for a year. The officer lets himself in with a spare key to find the curtains are drawn. The flat is extremely neat and tidy. Everything is in order except a padlocked north face holdall in the bath of the ensuite bedroom containing the naked body of Gareth Williams. His DNA is not found on the padlock, zipper or Velcro handles, which have been fastened. In fact, there is hardly any DNA in the flat except for traces belonging to an unidentified person on the zip of the padlock. Neither are there any finger, foot or palm prints on the bath. There is no evidence of a struggle, apart from a little bruising on Gareth's elbow as he lies curled in the fetal position. The shower curtain has been drawn, the lights are off, a doorknob has been removed, and one of his 4 phones has been reset to factory settings. The flat has been locked from the outside. The key for the padlock is in the bag with Gareth. This isn't a board game, so you're not going to need to write all this down.
Oh,
but I'm just giving you more and more
Is there
of the level
did they
of
figure this
oddness. No. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So, well, no.
So we're going to try and figure out what happened.
So 2 courts. I'll give you my take on what's actually happened. There's
This is what he'd do.
2 courts have ruled misadventure. There's a little bit more to this. The toxicology reports came back inconclusive since the body had been left decomposing for a week with the central heating set on full despite it being midsummer. It's too late to prove whether Gareth died whilst he was in the bag or before. No cause of death is found. Despite this, Dr. Fiona Wilcox says in the coroner's final report that Gareth's death was unnatural, unlikely, and likely to have been criminally meditated, and that the lack of hand and footprints in the bathroom is significant. In addition, Dr. Wilcox voices concerns about why it took so long for Williams' disappearance to be reported. She says that the evidence given by Gareth's line manager at GCHQ begins to stretch the bounds of credibility, and that the delay could have been caused key evidence at the scene to be lost. Robin Williams, not the singer, the Williams family solicitor, said that Gareth's employers failed to make even the most basic inquiries about his whereabouts or welfare. This, again, remember, this is like an absolute prodigy math genius that's working at GCHQ, which is essentially like the
NSA kind of.
Yeah, NSA. Like they monitor communications. They,
So which
they
Robin Williams
hack.
is it?
Yeah, this is
One
just
from
their
Good Will
solicitor.
Hunting, or
Different Robin Williams.
because there's a math genius in that one as well.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. So basically, what happened is it emerges in the course of the investigation that Gareth has visited bondage websites and looked up bondage training on YouTube. His internet history suggests he's had an interest in fashion, and there were £20,000 worth of women's clothing in the flat. During the inquest and subsequent police investigations, it's postulated that Gareth died in some sort of sexual act. Much delving is done into his private life. A video is found by police on his phone of him wagging his rear end at the camera. His landlady admits that she once found Gareth tied to his bed and called for help when he needed help being untied. So he is into bondage and stuff, right? But it doesn't seem like... In my opinion, it doesn't seem like him being found in a completely wiped crime scene inside a locked duffel bag.
Yeah. The
Feels like bondage. It feels like
Better Call Saul.
staged. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
a lot of people have postulated that this may have been a foreign asset. So a foreign agency, I'm going to say Russia, has come in, tried to get this guy to do, tried to turn him, tried to make him sort of like a sedition. I can't remember what they call it. It's basically where you try to convince a person to start working for you.
Oh, yeah.
And when it goes wrong, they kill you. And so when you don't say yes, basically they kill you and make it look like nothing ever happened. But what's really crazy about this is 2 different courts, including the ones working with the GCHQ themselves, have found, like, they've not really said, like, this looks suspicious. They've all just been like, oh no, who knows what could have happened? Oh no, who knows what could have happened? You know, it got brought up again recently, like last week. Again, it's just like, it's this really bizarre case of this very special person in really odd circumstances that has been handled really strangely. And what do you guys think may have happened here? Is this something that interests you? Does that seem kind of crazy to you?
I don't think he would have put himself in the bag.
Or it's not him.
Oh, wow.
What if he has a twin?
You think they prestiged it?
It's more just like I think most important part would be the cleaning up of the entire area to not actually have any trace.
That's the sign of someone who was a maths genius. That's how they think about it. What if they had a twin and the DNA is sufficiently close that he knew that on analysis they think it was him?
Why did he want to kill his twin?
Because then he can make an escape.
But
From where?
And what motive?
From doing what he does, he can just have a new identity, not work for GCHQ anymore.
So he had his backup twin
I see.
just
He
in
killed
case,
his twin.
just to cover his own ass.
And he had an awesome opportunity from Russia
Yeah.
to go work with them, but it's like you have to...
But we have added a twin
You have
to
to
his mix.
knock
I'm sure that'll be...
He might not have known that
that
he
would
was a
have
twin.
been... Okay.
Could have been
Classic
the attic
twin
the
theory.
entire
Well,
time.
we don't know anything about his parents. So were they his biological parents? Because they would have... Surely someone would have grilled these people and been like, what the fuck happened to your kid? Like,
Yeah, apparently.
He hated his twin.
Yeah.
One thing I forgot to mention. He's got a twin, identical.
Hugo up in the loft.
Yeah.
You don't think his completely identical twin would have something to do with this, would you?
But like to clean a scene like that does seem very much like some sort of agency would have done it.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But then, like he could have been into.
What do you think?
I reckon this is a sex act
Yeah.
that was all premeditated, and the whole thing was like the kink is cleanliness, but also a bit of bondage.
Yeah.
So I reckon it's like lock me in here for a bit, put me in the bag, and like just make this seem like nothing's going on, and come back to me later.
And then that person died.
And they both died. They all died. Yeah.
They all died.
What if he fell
Everyone's
foul
dead.
of a cleaning company?
Oh. Yeah, it didn't pay
Pay
up.
your cleaning bills. It's like, what the fuck?
We'll make it look like an accident, and
Yeah.
they'll never find the
Yeah,
parts.
trust me.
Jesus.
We can really, we can baffle the best scientific minds in the country.
If they're that good, like we should.
Silent
get a number.
Witness
I
Lab
mean,
were like, this
It's a
is
great ad.
impressive.
Yeah.
great ad. Yeah,
Great
if they can
ad.
clean that well. I mean, because like
Not
I just
one
can't imagine
DNA.
It's
No
easy
drop.
to clean up DNA, hair follicles, like fingerprints,
Yeah.
sweat, anything. Like if they found
If you
nothing.
wear a good morph suit, I think you could be trace free. You know,
keep everything in the bag that you're in.
a solid morph suit, some nitrile gloves.
But then that makes it look like some sort of fucking super spy did it or some shit.
Well,
like
let's
that.
insane for a moment that it was, in fact, a foreign hit. Much like the Salisbury things that happened,
yeah.
that actually happened. An
old
extremely
Novichok,
dangerous chemical agent was used to kill
Also,
people on British
used
soil.
comically,
Badly.
incompetently.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They were distracted by the beautiful spires.
123 meters tall.
Whereas this was
Place to be,
calculated.
actually.
Yeah,
Do you reckon that's increased tourism?
no, because
There's nothing in
Ah.
Cheltenham to distract them. So.
Salisbury literally still could have traces of Novichok. Its half-life is something like 600 years to degrade under normal conditions. So if it gets on something, it just stays on it. And that's why those two homeless people died, because they were rooting through a bin and it just had a bit on a bottle. And
Have they tried Daz?
they 99.9% including the coronavirus.
They should
right?
just spritzed it with
yeah.
a load of bleach and then just walked
fucking-
away.
Yeah, no, it does get. I think you can destroy it with cleaning products. It's just that if you don't,
I have no idea.
Like the sun doesn't degrade it, the sun doesn't break it down, all that sort of stuff. Like it's.
Have you seen the theory? This is what's happened with Liz Truss, by the way.
Well, she's been
replaced as a
Novichok.
Russian. She's a robot.
No, because she met the Queen, and then mysteriously the Queen died quite soon after.
Oh, yeah.
And now, just after meeting King Charles, very briefly, presumably during that time,
Well, the Truss is an insider.
Liz Truss polonium 210 handshake.
I think just her
maybe.
company is enough to kill anyone. Like she is just a fucking broken person, isn't she?
Well, she tried to break
less
the country
interesting
as
than
well. I
letters.
suppose. Yeah, she's on a full destructive mission.
She's one of these people that scares me. As in because she seems so detached from reality. It's like you can see there's a pilot behind her eyes just going, "Okay, let's say this now."
Say pork
and you're
markets.
like,
the alien
And smile.
Men in Black.
Yeah, except,
Yeah.
except somehow less charismatic than a man's face opening and showing you a tiny, ugly little ball bag alien. I'd still rather, see that. But no, and then the popular conservative thing that happened yesterday, and you sent me that thing of Holly Valance talking about how much she loves the right wing.
She's a climate denier.
She's a climate. No, Holly Valance, your
She's all this
favourite
climate
singer
crisis
and
nonsense. How does that make you feel when someone says climate? Yeah, just denies.
I don't think the
anything.
climate's real.
And it's just like, or they say something stupid like, when it's really cold, and what about the global warming, eh?
Oh my God.
And it's like, what the fuck?
We've reached Republican 2000s
Yeah,
level
that sentence in
of-
itself is clearly a misunderstanding of everything. It's just,
And you somehow don't think this is your problem. You
Yeah.
somehow think that you don't think that you've missed a memo here
It's
somehow.
just, it's
Oh,
so bizarre,
dear.
and it's just like,
Yeah,
oh,
you got to.
you don't have to be that smart to understand these things.
You really don't.
That's the thing. It's not
Look
like
at me.
it isn't that.
I'm not smart. I
But
just
like, you
didn't
don't
give
need
up.
a PhD to understand these things. You don't.
Careful, you're going to sound like a Tory in no time. I'm not doing telling. I just worked hard.
I just worked and I had a baron for a dad.
No, but I guess obviously we
Also, when
always try and wrap our heads around why people don't see something the way you see it. Right?
I understand
Like,
why. I understand the policies behind. As in, they're looking at a different thing here. They're looking at the cost of the I guess fossil fuels is what they're really kind of. They're being controlled by them in the back end. They know there's big money there, so they don't want to shake that tree.
Maybe being Tory is just a kink.
Maybe.
Much like this case. Maybe it's just like a humiliation kink. It's just like you just want to be so desperately
But-
wrong about things.
Well, I don't know, or just not.
Someone's
you don't have
gotta be
deal,
wrong.
You don't have to deal with things if you don't deny. If you don't accept it's there, you don't have to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
Prime Minister's question times, just having like, trying desperately to hide. That's why they have the paperwork.
Fucking hell, yes.
Oh, Keir, tell me I'm an idiot again.
I love it.
Sorry, I've just come back from seeing our latest approval numbers. Ooh, they're awful. They really hate me.
Is that Caroline Lucas? She's going to tell me I'm right.
Rishi, I got something perfect that you can say in the latest House of Commons speech.
They always give in front of the lectern, right?
Yeah.
Those are not transparent lecterns.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
But they are backless, which is there's a capacity to, like
to dock.
that's a hollow lectern. Yeah, it's more of a dock. Yeah.
To ask you a personal question, on a scale of the questions you get asked is completely irrelevant to your expertise, how often does that happen? Like, oh yeah, you're a doctor, right? So tell me about the ground and biology.
Well, it's interesting because my specialism is really narrow. That's the whole thing about a PhD is you become one of the world experts on a tiny thing.
Yeah.
And my specialism is stratosphere troposphere coupling over the Arctic.
Right.
That's specifically what my PhD was about. And so there's layers around that. So atmospheric dynamics, and then the atmosphere as a whole and climate as part of that. But then
was the climate a big focus or not?
No, not at all.
No,
it wasn't.
right.
It wasn't part of the PhD because that is a research question about whether it's affecting what I was studying. But I was looking at the internal dynamics of how it worked. But I very, very rarely get asked about exactly what I did. So I basically always feel like I'm talking outside of my specialism. But there is this definition of scientific expertise that is basically where your knowledge matches with somebody else's experience. And so if I know something about why it's cold or why it's rainy today, then to someone who wants to know the answer to that question, I become an expert.
Right.
So it's sort of subjective,
Yeah.
really. But yeah, very rarely do I feel like I'm being asked exactly.
I was just about to ask about the coupling.
Well, there was an interesting thing that happened a couple of weeks ago, actually, but we won't talk about that.
Do you feel more like a therapist than a scientist sometimes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot.
Because I asked my audience, on Instagram, because I did this video recently where I was like, I need to pivot how I'm making content and change. The way that I think previously I was making videos was very academic. It's, I know a thing about this subject I think is important, I want to tell you about it, and I'm going to try and convince you to watch that video by the title and the thumbnail. And I think the way that I need to do things now is, what do you want to know about, and then how does that overlap with what I know, and then how do I get you to watch my version of answering that question,
take, yeah.
basically. And the most common response when I asked on Instagram, what questions do you guys have about climate, was basically is there any hope? Should I bother having children? Is there any good news?
Yeah.
And so I was like, cool, right, I will make a video about that. So that's why that next video is.
We've had a lot of these questions
Should
ourselves.
I bother having children? It's a good title.
Yeah. I mean, I guess
it's interesting. It's should I?
Well, as a dad.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good. I mean, yeah, you put your money where your mouth is. I think one last question I would have is, I think a lot of the time when I talk to people about my personal feelings regarding I think climate is the biggest challenge facing humanity right now. I mean, obviously I don't want all these wars to break out in bigger and bigger scenarios. Lots of crazy shit going on right now. I completely get that, but overall, the overarching thing, because of how holistic and how how connected we are to all the natural cycles of the world, for me, I feel very impassioned to talk about climate as being the big thing we need to solve. And when I talk to people that don't necessarily think like that, the main thing they often say to me is they feel concern of the climate is dogmatic. So they feel like it's more a belief than, well, it is a belief in a way, but they're often oh yeah, I mean I get where you're coming from, but I just don't like how everyone's sort of preaching. It's it feels, they say it feels like a religion almost, it feels like a cult, almost like a doomsday cult. What do you have a good sort of return to that, or a good reply? Sorry, not return.
Yeah, I agree. I see where people come from, because it's become a culture war issue. It's become this thing that people shriek about, basically. And I have a real problem with climate coverage that is very doomsayery, and there is a scary thing that's happening at the moment in the North Atlantic. We don't know why it's as warm as it is. It's been basically above historic levels for a year. Do you
think that's related to crab, lock drop and crab?
It's probably
catches?
something to do with crabs,
because they've said bringing us back to that fucking weird
I knew I had a phobia for a reason.
But I saw recently, just as a tangent, that crab catches and things like that have been way down in the North Atlantic.
Yeah, they've been having these mass die-off events that have been happening, and one of the reasons why we think that is because there's been this decrease in sulfate emissions from ships. So sulfates, when they get in the air, form sulfuric acid, and they reflect some sunlight away. And when you take that away, it results in a warming. So we think that that's a factor, but we don't quite know.
Why have they reduced?
New emission standards have come in.
So the ocean got used to us polluting, and now
Well,
they're not?
but the amount of energy coming in from the sun used to be slightly lower because we were reflecting some of it away. We
Right.
took some of the pollution away. It then became like the more sunlight made it to the ocean, basically.
So we need more fossil.
That's one argument that there's this idea of using geoengineering and reflecting away sunlight. But let's not touch that.
It's just so many variables.
There are like reasons why we're not sure it's happening, but it's not. No scientist is going around, well, I'm not yet to see a scientist going around and saying that's the start of the end of the world. And you see Instagram accounts, and I see it on threads and stuff, where it's just like people won't stop pushing this point of like, why is no one talking about this? This is the beginning of the end. And it's like, that's not helpful.
People are losing their mind about this mystery warming
It's
in
all
the
clickbait.
Atlantic.
It's all to get them to watch that specific video.
And I suppose that's it. It's the fact that like we live in a society and we have this social media
attention grabbing
that it forces you to take these extremist takes, and it radicalizes people to being like,
you have to rise above the noise, right? Yeah.
So like that's why we're in this like mess of people having that response. And I think the only way around it is by having conversations about it and educating yourself about it. If you think that climate has become a dogmatic thing, I'd encourage you to watch or read content from people who are informed about it. That I do some of it, Climate Town does some of it, Just Have a Think. There are lots of people on YouTube who do it.
You actually go to your sources.
Yeah. And you can, to be fair, the IPCC, like not the technical reports, but the summary for policymakers, the language is perfectly readable. Like the average person can go in there and get what they're saying. And like it's just trying to get at that information without that filter of what is going to grab your attention on social media. So it's a really hard situation we found ourselves in, so I can totally see why. But in terms of like when I have those conversations with people, it's like, well, what do you want to know? Talk to me about it and I'll answer your questions as best I can.
That must be a difficult position for you to be in as well, because you have to have an existence on YouTube. You have to rise above the noise, so to speak.
I don't want to make clickbait.
How do you not fall into that trap of like taking an article and in order to enhance the thumbnail and the title for them to click on your things, creating a very polarizing...
Well, I think if I was like doing YouTube the proper way, if I was Mr. Beastifying my channel, that's probably what I would do. That would be the way. And there's an argument to be made that if you get more people actually watching the video, then that's actually net better. But I personally feel uncomfortable doing it, so I've just said that I refuse to do that. Basically.
A lot of people just skim headlines, and that is the news that they digest.
The truth resists simplicity is the problem. To quote
I think people want simple answers. People want yes or no's, or
we're not built for this. We are not.
They want two categories and go, or teams. In some cases, it's just I'll just be on this team. So whatever they say, I'll just follow everything they do.
I was like built to live in a group of 100 people gathering berries. I was not built to try and deal with ecological collapse on a global scale.
We need to get the aliens back in to do an update.
Devs, come on.
Aliens, though, right?
Oh well, it'd be silly not to. They're out there somewhere.
Mathematically, it makes sense.
Yeah, Fermi equation, people, look it up. Drake equation. Shit, it's a Drake
Fermi
equation.
paradox.
Fermi paradox.
Breaking through various...
The great filters,
yeah.
Fermi equation.
In fact, I was going to say, didn't the Fermi
Nice.
paradox suggest that there isn't other aliens, or if there are...
Well, it's the fact that they should, mathematically they should be, if you like do the numbers, and it's like, why haven't we heard from them?
Yeah.
That's the paradox.
And that's a suggestion that,
Why haven't we seen?
But it might be that there's a massive filter. There's a great filter idea that, like, maybe
you reach a certain point.
By the time you get to the point where you could contact other races, you make yourself extinct.
Yeah. Self-destructive.
Either we're like so intelligent, there's nothing else, or we're so stupid that we just can't understand all these signals that are coming at us, so we just don't know how to read.
Or we could just be the first intelligent life in the universe. Like we could be the Eldar in Warhammer, or the old ones.
It feels very narcissistic to assume such a thing.
Yeah,
we
must
just assume,
be special.
like when you consider how vast it all is, and you see all this stuff.
We're the
coming from
only
telescope.
species with like a Guy Fieri. Like that must make us special.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, but hold on, infinite monkeys, infinite typewriters. There's got to be an alien Fieri out there, right? Like, as in, like, the universe is always expanding. Eventually, it's going to expand and create a Guy Fieri with 4 arms.
If that Gary guy that genius,
bland forest,
if that genius that died in a bag in his bathtub, can find his DNA equivalent from the job he did, and then bait and switch him on planet Earth itself.
Sorry, we're back on the twin theory, aren't we?
Yeah. The twin.
What I'm trying to say is, he found his
issue.
DNA twin, even if he didn't have a twin. He found it because of the job he was in. He had NSA, right? He could access everybody.
He did have
NSA. He found his DNA equivalent and ended up putting him in a bathtub so he could
That's got to
work
suck
at
that he
Russia.
spent
That must mean there's an alien Guy Fieri.
What if that's how you time travel?
Wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Like,
What if that's how you time travel?
The alcohol makes it all bearable.
Wow, exactly. Like he spent his entire youth just doing this intense course,
doing it at
start
any-
fast tracking it as
And
well.
then bam, dead in the
and
bag.
then just found in a
Dead in the
bag.
bag of 23. Yeah, but what I just said to Trott, like, what if it turns out this is the way to like jump realities?
You
You know,
put
like
yourself in a
as in,
bag.
I'm going to
Yeah.
go over to I'm going to go to the different dimension. I'm
You
going to
figured
get
out
this, put
something.
myself in a bag. And as
found
long
out
as
too
nobody
much.
works out
Yeah.
how you died, you stay in that reality.
You're
But
not
as soon
allowed
as they
to
work it
leave
out,
any of your own DNA
Yeah.
outside this bag.
Yeah, the bag is like a warp bubble.
Yeah.
You got to be naked like the Terminator.
Yeah.
I think we cracked a case.
Holy shit.
He's been jumping realities.
Did it mention how like jacked this guy was? Was
Not
he...
very. He's quite lithe.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Well,
Well, he
wasn't
fit into a
strong.
bag.
It's the T1000.
Bear in mind-
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The newer models were more live, weren't they?
Yeah.
He's all about the brain. Maybe did they check that his brain was still there?
Yeah.
Because what if his brain ran away? Like, what if we don't know?
What do you mean? How
We
did
don't know.
Ran away.
That's it.
You're now making me think whether the Terminator design team had like a meeting after the
Should it just be a
Is it the T800 is Arnold's? Or is it the 400?
400, I
Is it
think.
400? After that, they were like,
200
okay, I think we went a bit heavy on the muscle.
Yeah.
I think, can we maybe dial that back a
Yeah.
bit? Did they have like a mood board? Where they
Yeah,
were like,
yeah.
This is what we want the Terminator to feel.
This is a lot
That
of
was from the future.
resources.
Maybe they imagine.
What about
they imagine
liquid?
Everyone was
Just
big in the
liquid.
future, or is it just that that's what a
right
soldier
out of the
should
ball.
be?
Liquid.
What, robots?
Any
Yeah,
shape.
yeah.
It's weird. It's funny how we have these.
And why should they be humanoid?
That's
What,
the robots
aliens?
shouldn't be humanoid.
No, you think that's inefficient. There's probably a better way.
Yeah.
The
Problem is with
Boston
robots, right?
Dynamics
I was
robots.
talking about this last night. If we get robots to fight all our wars, it then just becomes a resource war instead. Because as soon as you run out of the resources to build your robots, your country's now dead and you will die of famine anyway. Because you've used all the resources to build
That's
the
a
robots.
Voyager episode, Star Trek Voyager episode,
Yeah,
where there's
it
like
is,
two
yeah.
alien races that basically do that, but they both go extinct, and these robots are just forever fighting each other and trying to like get
The great
resources to keep
filter,
it going.
guys. The great
Seriously,
filter in
sci-fi,
action.
It's a very useful breeding ground for futurology.
We just need belter loaders
belter loaders. We need
up in space mining
need-
asteroids.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
So like,
belter.
it's like, well, they're second-class citizens that live in space.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
give us our resources.
Yeah.
Trott, I think
I don't recognise
you've
that in an
rediscovered
economic
colonialism
system.
again. Guys, we need to get past colonialism for God's sake.
Shit. All right,
Hey, those
Dyson
moons
sphere.
didn't have any flags on them.
No.
Well,
We need a solid Dyson
we could
sphere is
see.
what we need.
Yeah.
Endless supply from our sun.
Yeah, we're never going to get there if we don't stop poisoning ourselves.
True that.
That's the problem. This is all the dreams, all the great things we do, all the sci-fi you've seen on TV. It could become a reality if we just start
Like the good
agreeing
ones, like
that
Star
we should
Trek.
stop filling the air with
Not the
poison.
dystopic sci-fi.
Huh?
yeah, we're gonna be okay.
Sorry?
Not the dystopic
I
sci-fi.
breathe through my hands when I'm outside.
That's just because of the parts.
The part, yeah.
Careful. I can
The
very...
particulate matter.
Yeah, that's PM5.
2.4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hold on.
just-
Adam
yeah.
finger.
God made a human hand for a reason.
He
to
did.
fill my mouth.
And he made bananas to feed me and hands
Certified
to...
Republican moment.
Yeah. Bananas to feed me, hands to protect me from the poison air. God serves. And it's like the like the blind lady of justice, but it's a banana and a cupped hand. Like
It fits perfectly in my hand.
Yeah, yeah.
God made it this way.
Anyway, well, the world's gone fucking mental. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Simon.
I felt like we didn't get to the bottom of very
We
much
didn't-
today.
no,
You
we
never
never
do,
do.
you? And I
We
don't think
never
anyone
do,
should
yeah.
expect the
But-
bottom. It's an ongoing process. We're always in transition, and hopefully that's a transition towards a better world, and not one where I have to suck up people's farts.
That's important.
I don't want to do that anymore.
It's a great system that's like easy.
Data transfer through aerosol, is it possible? That was the thing I wanted to answer on.
I mean, in a sense, yes.
In an air mix, could it ever be understood, or is it always going to jumble things?
Oh yeah, you'd have to. Oh god, you'd have to do a convolution of the different. Yeah.
What if you could perfectly
need
map
something that
all of the
understands-
movements?
it needs to read it.
So you fire the data via an aerosol. I don't know why you'd have to do this, because obviously you have
It's insane.
So I'm firing data as an aerosol. What if I had like perfect scan of the entire volume of the air that data moves through, and then we can use AI to work out how that information should have been assembled and gives you like a best guess? Or is the AI then just
Well, you could
imagining what
do-
the data is at that point?
You could do a spectroscopic analysis. You
Yeah.
could work out what the compounds in it are. You could, if you wanted to be really clever about it, you could engineer a specific molecule that had like a specific
Now we're
absorption
talking.
spectrum.
Yeah, that's
right.
what I was
So it
thinking.
absorbs photons at these specific frequencies
Yeah.
that you tune to correspond with like an alphabet. So you say that it's missing. It's got absorption absorption gaps at these wavelengths. Those wavelengths correspond to these letters.
Okay.
And then
here's a storyline. Secret spy has to encode a load of data into a pill that he swallows. When he gets home, he farts into a spectrometer. and this coded
undetectable.
information, this coded methodology you've created.
there's a double agent who's then also farting in the same room. Just trying to muddy the waters.
It's what's it called though when you have
It's not Chinese whispers. It's kind of like Chinese farting.
Yeah, they're just down in the lobby just eating broccoli.
Yeah, I gotta try.
I've got a message to send.
You got to speed this up.
What do they call false information in wartime when you like try and counter propaganda people? It's misinformation.
God.
Well, it's like counter-espionage,
It's
sabotage.
Yeah, it's where you try and like jumble up the information through farting in the same room as the guy that's farting out a very delicate.
There's someone just giving a link.
Okay, you ready? You ready? They come in the room like, I'm ready to go.
Wait, don't do it. Someone sprayed into Links Africa in here. No, I can't do it. It's
trying to hold this.
jumbling the police.
I'm about to fart plans for a nuclear reactor. Oh god!
Is there a level of fart in particular that we have to worry about quantum physics? Where certain particles may or may not
Pop in and out of this reality.
Yeah, there are always ones and zeros.
It doesn't
Quantum
smell
fine.
until you don't know if it smells or not.
Yeah,
until you
you
smell
don't.
it.
The
You never really
muons,
know.
they're called muons, the ones that like are there and not, there and not. They found it when they vacuum out it. There was an experiment done where they removed all of the matter from within a vacuum chamber.
Yeah.
But then they were still able to measure something going on. But it was particles popping in and out of
Yeah,
existence.
like a quantum foam kind of thing. Yeah, you get
Yeah,
particles that will
yeah.
appear and their antiparticle will also appear.
Yeah, I think that's what Trott's trying to get at here. Like, do we need to worry about farts from other
I
dimensions?
just worried about the data corruption from the
Interdimensional
fart.
You know, when you get invited to podcasts, I normally have an idea roughly
No, that's
of what
nothing.
to expect. No, not in this
No
one.
one
And
expected
you know us
interdimensional
as well, and you
farts.
still don't
don't
know where it's going to go.
This conversation feels like ragdolling down a mountain in Skyrim.
Yeah, I'm sorry, because like I think you're trying to give us really good, and you've given us some really, really good answers. But as soon as one of us sees an opportunity to chuck like another stupid variable
I'm here
on the
for it.
question, we're like, yeah, now why would you do this? You know, this is quite a nice thing for us because none of us are experts in most of the things we talk about.
No.
I don't know. You said you're not an expert in everything, but you can give a best guess. But even if you're presented as an expert, we then just to just throw things off of you and just be like,
Yeah,
come on,
yeah.
give us a good
These
answer.
ideas
That
feel-
one off at a weird angle.
Yeah.
These ideas feel more at home in like a writer's room for like a sci-fi comedy.
Yeah.
That's
Maybe that's what we should be doing.
Which I think
Yeah,
maybe
maybe that is what we should
we
be
could be
doing.
turning it into
Big Bang did well, although we
Rick
wouldn't be
and
writing the Big
Morty
Bang.
No, it'd be your version of Rick and
Big
Morty would be
Bang,
even
yeah.
more fucked.
Yeah, it's not that clever, is it, to just go more fuck than already exists? Yeah,
Hey, it's working out for some authors.
It is.
yeah.
It is. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Simon Clark, for joining us on this
having me.
podcast.
Where
It's
can we
always a pleasure.
find your work?
So you can find me on YouTube. I'm Simon Clark. I'm hopefully going to be doing some streaming soon. I'm back on Twitch, Dr. Simon Clark. Obviously with baby, it's been a bit difficult.
Fresh dad.
And then, something else I should mention is, wrote a book, if you want to read that, called Firmament.
It's a firmament.
Yeah.
And there's a podcast that I launched last year, the season 2 coming out this year, called How to Make a Science Video, where I talk to different science creators. We talked to Hank Green this season. We're talking to
Nice.
Electro Boom, some really big creators about their process. So if you find like that science side of YouTube interesting, go and check it out. There's a whole all of season 1's available now. I'm not sure when season 2's out.
For the betterment of humanity, you owe it to yourself to get educated
You
by
should,
Dr.
yeah.
Simon Clark.
Well, I'm not going to put it in those terms, but you can.
I did. I did.
It's genuinely
That's
well
good.
produced.
You need a hype
content.
man so you can stay humble. You
Yeah.
get best of both worlds.
Yeah, again, it's like a medieval court.
It
I
really
want
is.
the hype
Yeah.
guy in
You
front
want a
of
Paul
the
Bettany.
vizier.
You want Paul Bettany. You know?
Yes.
You know,
Yeah, exactly.
My noble kings and queens, I present to you the Lord of Atmospherics, the King of Queefs.
Specifically over the Arctic.
Yeah. Hi, yes.
Sorry about him.
I should just know about specific.
Like, the master of the atmosphere.
Master of everything.
Anyway, yeah, thanks very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And thank you again to all of our members, Patreons, Twitch subscribers that are watching live right now as well. Thank you for supporting us.
Indeed.
As Simon has found out recently, your direct support makes a huge difference to allowing us to keep producing the kind of content we make. He's making stuff that's a lot higher brow.
There's actually a point to his stuff.
Yeah.
I definitely say there's a point to your stuff.
Ours is very much just three idiots.
I know how to manage a medieval village.
Yeah.
I previously
Do
did
you
not
really
feel
know? Do we?
qualified.
Nah.
Do we
Not
really
at all.
know?
People keep leaving. Like, really, they'd be dying, is what they would be doing in the
Yeah.
reality. But,
They're
just-
walking into just a forest.
Walk off
Yeah.
into the mist.
Oh, fine.
The best thing is we can both live in a beautiful ecosystem where we don't compete.
Yes,
that's
wonderful.
true, yeah.
It's lovely, isn't
Of
it?
course it is, yeah.
But we can also cross-pollinate like this.
Oh, of course.
Oh,
which is
yeah.
lovely.
Wow.
Although we can't really offer much intellectual
capture that data.
knowledge on your
No,
channel.
it sparked off some ideas for me.
Yeah.
There may
Yeah?
be some fart-related
Really,
content.
I want to look into the aerosol thing. Look into it. I mean, that's, you know.
This is what people
Yeah,
are
it could be a
thinking
thing.
about. Average non-scientists are thinking about aerosol data.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
By the way, we are very aware of how bad the idea of an aerosol as a way to transmit data is.
You're
But that's why I'm kind of
you're
obsessed
kind of
with
making
it.
me think now. If
Yeah,
I ever write
well,
sci-fi, I might have to put that in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Memory gas. Oh.
Oh, okay.
Now everyone in the room knows how to dance.
That was like the Matrix.
Yeah,
You just
yeah.
have to breathe in a fart.
It's an upload. Yeah.
Or someone like
exactly.
tries to sell like
I know
Hitler's
Kung
farts
Fu.
in a can.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
god, it is. Ah, smelling
yeah.
history. Oh, no way.
I'm having some pretty good ideas. I mean, bad ideas.
Bad
Well, thank you for joining us. That is all we got time for today.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week. Go check out Dr. Simon Clark's stuff.
Indeed.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.
Love.